This episode of Inside Golf Podcast is brought to you by Inside Sports Network.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy, Boston Capital Twiddle, Steve, on the Hold the Green podcast.
All right, we are live. Tapping birdie.
All right, Carson Young is here.
I bet Ludwig at 28.
Let's go. I bet
You
him
did
at,
too?
I bet him at 25.
Low sevens. I think there's some guys in here we like.
Harris English at 7,300.
I love Brian Harmon at 3.5% this week.
RB, welcome in. How are we doing on this great Monday afternoon? How was your U.S. Open, my friend?
Still, yeah, I was messaging with your friend Joseph Amani this morning, and I was like, I'm still recovering. You know, I think like I was asking him, when was the last time that 6 to 8 guys had a chance to win on the last 5 holes? It's been a long time. Really cool for Spawn. The putter got hot at the right time. Obviously, awesome shot on 71st hole. But all in all, like, it was fun. It's fun to see something different. It's fun to see the guys struggle. Like, you know, I think the rough was overblown a bit in terms of the coverage, but it did what it was intended to do.
So you were pro Oakmont because there were a lot of people that were big mad about Oakmont and the test and its quality as a U.S. Open venue. Personally, I enjoyed the hell out of it. I thought once it started pouring rain, it did start when they had all of those guys come back out on the course to finish up their round on Sunday afternoon. That was a little goofy. It was just a weird spot for all of them. And it did feel like the element of variance and randomness got kicked up past the point where it's like, I don't even know if we're necessarily identifying the best player here, but statistically, I mean, Data Golf has already put out some great stuff on this. The golf course separated skill in the way that it should have, in the way that I think a proper US Open test should. So I ended up being a lot more pro Oakmont than what I think maybe some of the other narratives might be.
Yeah, like, you can't control the weather. Like, obviously on Friday when it was at its firmest, I think it was really fun because I think really the charm.
Agreed. I thought Friday was the best day.
Like the charm of Oakmont is the greens, right? The irons into the greens, the short game shots. And that gets mitigated when the rough is wet and 6 inches long. But, it really put an emphasis on scrambling and driving and being able to put your ball in the right spot. And at the end of the day, like, yes, it was Spawn and McIntyre in the end, but that leaderboard ended up really good. There were like 4 or 5 major champions in the top 12. Scotty was there, Rom, right? Like, I think there was enough going on there.
Yeah, and I've said this a million times. I'll say it again, but if you thought that the setup at Oakmont was bordering on goofy, then you should be like with your picket signs up at PGA Tour, USGA, and PGA of America headquarters, begging them to roll the ball back, because the only reason why they grew up the rough to this point is because it's really hard to protect par in with modern technology. It's just, if you want a US Open where the winning score is going to be over par, you have to have the rough up to points where it is borderline goofy / impossible for these guys. That's what you need to do in 2025 to get a winning score over par. And if you don't like that, that's fine. I don't love watching it all the time either. I wouldn't want it every single week. But if you want a US Open where the winning score is above par, you need to do so many
Stupid
things
stuff. Yeah.
that will borderline on goofy and borderline on almost de-skilling to get that winning score above par. So again,
Yeah.
I didn't have a problem with it. It seemed like the Oakmont members and the USGA had a specific goal in mind, and that is that they wanted the tournament to be won at even par or above even par. And the things that you have to do that are extreme in 2025 with how dialed in these players are with modern technology and how much control they have over their golf ball. I'll ask you this, because there were a lot of surprises on the leaderboard. What was your biggest surprise of the week?
I think it has to be Bryson, right?
I gotta be honest, like I'll take a massive L there. I really did not think that him missing the cut was a realistic outcome for this tournament. Didn't see it at all. You could have given me 100 chances to break down the tournament, and I still would have told you that I don't think Bryson is missing the cut.
I think for sure that was the biggest shock. But I mean, over the weekend, I think, and I'm not going to knock him because he didn't play badly, but like this was right there for Victor Hovland. Scotty was not really there. Rory was not there. Bunch of guys missed the cut. Like this was probably his. Now I have a future at Portrush, but I think this was his best chance for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a ton on the Wednesday show. We talked about it a little bit on our Monday show as well. But these golf courses with thick rough, particularly around the greens, I think it's a really good setup for Hovland. Yeah. And I mean, Hovland finished 4th in around the green this week. I mean, seriously, RB, if you gave me 100 tries to predict the top 10 in putting and around the green this week, I wouldn't have landed on the guys that finished top 10 in putting and around the green this week.
Yeah. And like with Hovland specifically, I think he chipped in twice, so maybe it was skewed a little bit, but yeah, the strokes gained stats in general this week, I think were skewed.
Wonky.
I'm not taking a ton from it.
Yeah.
Just because again, like you miss a fairway, you're chipping out sideways. Like I don't even know. Is that dinging? I guess that's dinging the off the tee number, right? Like if you're chipping out sideways, because it's not an approach shot. So I'm not sure.
That's a really good question. I actually don't know the answer to that in terms of the calculation. So like, for example, strokes gained is calculated. It seems like a lot of people are confused about this, but strokes gained is calculated against thousands of other PGA Tour shots of what other players do from that distance, right? So if you are 150 yards out and in the fairway at Oakmont versus 150 yards out and in the thick rough at Oakmont, and if you're in the thick rough, you may not even have the ability to get anywhere close to the green. So is that hurting you off the tee or on approach? That's a good question. I didn't know whether that got calculated into off the tee or
like I feel like and I'm not sure how they can do it like shot to shot, because there's situations where they're not even attempting the approach shot, like they're just chipping out sideways, like that's
one of the limitations of strokes gain. Another huge limitation of strokes gain around the green and why it became so difficult is that, and such a wonky, like in terms of the guys that gained strokes around the green at Oakmont versus who were actually the best chippers of the ball that week. But like around the green is not, strokes gain around the green is not accounting for like intent. Okay. So like, for example, if you are, it's comparing you to other chips of that distance, right? So like there are going to be times at Oakmont where you are short-sided and you're chipping the ball out and you're not even like remotely trying to get the ball close to the pin in that situation. So it may end up looking like a bad around the green shot, but compared to other around the green shots where you have thousands of PGA Tour data on, but at Oakmont this week, you're not even in the position to be able to hit a good around the green shot whatsoever. So that would be another limitation that I would call forward in terms of who finished well in terms of strokes gained around the green and putting. I mean, there's cases at Oakmont in terms of putting where there's a 15-foot putt and you're like you have to be so defensive where you're not even really in a position to try and make the putt. You're just trying to not have your next putt roll 15 feet by.
Yep, absolutely.
So
and there was a lot of good stuff from the grounds this week, videos, other angles, like even Spawn's final putt. Like you could tell a bit on TV that it was long and there were some humps to go over. Obviously, he got a read from Hovland, but if you look at some of those reverse angles of it, that was a hard fucking putt. I don't care that he saw it, right?
Insane. And
it's pouring rain,
And the I had some issues with the coverage this week. I don't think NBC presented Oakmont screens well. I mean,
the commercial load was insane too, by the way.
The commercial load was 100% insane. And when I have played golf courses in the past that have amazing greens, a lot of those like internal contouring and stuff that makes the greens so difficult for players, it's going to be really, really difficult to see on television. Like it's just the television cameras are not going to be able to present. And I thought that happened a lot at Oakmont, where even I was watching it and I was like, I know this putt is insanely difficult, but the camera angle that you're giving me is not showing to me why this putt is insanely difficult. And I'm not saying that's the fault of NBC or anything like that, because it's really difficult to get the correct camera angles to be able to show like the contouring on the greens and the undulations that you have at a place like Oakmont. But yeah, I mean, it gave these guys absolute fits. I mean, what did you think of Scotty's performance this week? Obviously he didn't win. But he ended up like sticking around to the point where he actually had a little bit of a chance on Sunday, mainly because it got so goofy after the weather delay. But he finished, I believe he finished what, T8 on the week. How would you grade Scotty's performance?
So, I mean, really the only thing, well, the obvious thing is he missed like 4 2-footers. That's like the first thing to look at. I'm not as concerned about that. He just didn't drive it well. Like Scotty hits more fairways than anybody when he's playing well. And he had the lefts going this week. He was in the church pews, at least 3 or 4 times?
He didn't drive it great. He really didn't. Like it wasn't particularly even on the 18th hole. Like that was a hole that you needed to drive the ball in the fairway. It was that hole 18. If you drove the ball in the fairway at 18, it actually became a very straightforward par 4. And if you did not drive the ball in the fairway on 18, like they showed the graphic, like if you missed in the right rough on 18, the scoring average was over bogey.
Exactly. Right. But yeah, like I think that's why he lost. Like you want to make all those short putts, but I believe Scotty lost strokes off the tee this week, right? I think
he did. He barely lost strokes off the tee for the week.
Usually he's gaining 5 to 8. So like, that's the difference between him being 1 under and him being 4 over.
Of the 70 players that made the cut, 65 players that made the cut, Scotty ranked 47th in off the tee, 11th in approach, 10th in around the green, and 26th in putting. He finished T7. So
I mean, Scotty probably lost strokes off the tee twice in the last 3 years. Like this is, it is very, very out of the norm.
Were you properly able to profit off of Cam Young's T4? Because that was a phenomenal call by you. I did it. I played Cam Young this week, and it was one of the best play. He was absolutely one of the best plays on the DraftKings slate. I mean, that 6K range, it was Bobby Mack, Cam Young, Grazerman. I mean, those are the guys that we talked about, and congrats to you on being big on Cam Young this week.
I'm sure we'll talk about him more, but yes, that was a good one. I mean, I was super heavily invested in Rahm also. And so again, just kind of frustrated, he played well on Sunday, but like he played well enough to contend this week. And I had a lot of Burns as well.
Good call on
tough
Burns.
Sunday.
Thoughts on the Burns relief situation from Chandler. I kind of missed it, to be honest with you. I had a lot of balls in play on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
And I kind of just like missed this whole aspect.
So, I mean, I would say like the optics weren't good on it because he stood there forever. Every practice swing he took, water was splashing up. Kyle Porter didn't help afterwards, going out there and tweeting the video because I think it looked worse in his video than it did.
I didn't see this from Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle walked out there to the spot and was sloshing around out there, and there was a lot of water, right? But like, I don't remember anybody else on Sunday asking for any relief from the fairway. So again, it was after the delay, so there were probably some unique spots, but I think it was just a bad break for him, overall, and he seemed to handle it pretty well, other than he hit a terrible shot and made double bogey.
Any other closing thoughts that you want to touch on from Oakmont? What did you make of Colin, who gained 11 strokes on approach? And I think he's good to talk about because it'll transition us into talking.
It was enough. Yeah, it was enough to get me on board this week, obviously. But
did you bet him?
I did this morning, yes. But yeah, I mean,
what number did you get? 19 to 1?
20. Yeah. 20
yeah, good number.
Yeah, I mean, it just like I didn't see a lot of Colin. I see that he lost like 11 strokes putting, so that is not going to happen at Cromwell. I can promise you that. So yeah, I mean, Colin, it always seems to be a different excuse with him when he's like not in contention. It's like, oh, he chipped terribly this week, or oh, he had a blow up hole, or oh, he lost 11 strokes putting. Like, I don't know. He's just got to win. He's got to figure it out.
You think it could be this week? I somewhat agree with you as well. I don't know if I'm going to end up betting Morikawa this week. Devin, are you going back? Type in the chat. I'm very curious.
It's not enjoyable.
Your thoughts on Colin this week as well. No, it's actually quite miserable, and I can tell you that as somebody that has bet Colin a couple times this year. I haven't bet him a lot, but I've played him in DFS a lot. The last time that I bet Morikawa was actually at a golf course that's very similar to this at Harbortown, where he finished T54 and was a terrible bet by me that week. But all of the reasons why I bet him at Harbortown would be the reasons why I would bet him this week at TPC River Highlands. I mean, in theory, these golf courses should be on paper the best golf courses for Colin Morikawa, right? Test accuracy more than it tests distance. Check. Test short iron play more than it tests long iron play. Check. My only concern with Colin this week is it too easy? Because I think that you're going to need to get to 20 under this week. And I don't know if I can count on the putter to get Colin to 20 under this week. That would be my concern. If I felt like the golf course was going to play firmer and faster and more difficult, and it was going to be one of those Travelers Championships where the winning score is 13 under. But I don't think that TPC River Highlands is that anymore. To me, TPC River Highlands now, and it doesn't look like there's going to be a ton of rain on the weather forecast, but I think we'll get some scoring regression from last year. Like, I don't think that it will play as difficult as it played last year, but I still think winning score this week, like, you have to confidently feel like you can get to 20 under par.
Yeah. And he played really well here last year. He didn't have a great Sunday, but he gained across the board in strokes gained categories. I'm pretty sure last week at the US Open was his best iron performance ever, coupled with arguably his worst putting performance ever. So yeah, again, probably some
funny how it always seems to work that way.
Probably
right?
some noise in there, but still, like, that tells you, like, I think one of those things is much more sustainable than the other. So
good question from Ben here. Has Morikawa ever actually won at the courses you think he'd win at? Players Heritage? I think the answer is no. I can't. I mean, what? Colin Morikawa has 5 to 7 PGA Tour wins. A couple of them have come. He's won Memorial once. Cantlay is the one who's won Memorial twice. Obviously, his 2 major championships.
Well, Colin won the week after that was not the Memorial, but it was at the course. Yeah. No, I mean, I would say the only one where I think I had a lot of exposure to him was the WGC that he won at Concession. Just because, again, those Florida golf courses, right, they're all pretty similar. So you think about Copperhead, you think about Sawgrass, like I think that's the type of golf course. But no, Colin, no, he never does what he's supposed to.
Thoughts on TPC River Highlands, golf course that we have quite a bit of data on. I already put out a podcast earlier on yesterday, breaking down some of my thoughts on TPC River Highlands. Do you have anything else to add on the golf course before we start talking about the players?
So, I mean, no, it's comfort food, right? It's a course that we know. It's a nice, easy break after the U.S. Open where these guys can get to 20 under. Obviously, it's nice to have a strong field, but it's a short par 70. Like these guys are going to eat it up, especially. I assume we're going to get a little bit of rain this week. But no, it's not a super exciting golf course.
Yeah, Timothy, I don't really have a strong counter argument. He's been one of the most disappointing players on the PGA Tour this season. Okay, so let's talk more about the players here. We have Scotty Scheffler at 13.3. So he actually went down in pricing. And to me, this is back on a very comfortable spot for Scotty Scheffler. Do I think that TPC River Highlands is the best possible golf course on tour for Scotty Scheffler? I don't, but there are a lot of things that work in Scotty Scheffler's favor this week. There's a golf course that tests accuracy more than it tests distance. That's generally a good thing for Scotty Scheffler. This is a golf course with very straightforward greens. That's generally a very good thing for Scotty Scheffler. And at the end of the day, whether it's long irons or short irons, Scotty's really the best at both. So he's great on long iron courses, but he's also the best wedge player in the world. I mean, if you look at the proximity numbers from 100 to 150 yards, where you're going to get the lion's share of approach shots this week, Scotty's still number one. Morikawa's number two. It's like Morikawa, Henley, Lucas Glover right after him. But Scotty's still, for my money, if we are talking about the number 1, 2, and 3 things that are most important for me this week at TPC River Highlands, it's middle to short iron play, putting, particularly putting from 5 to 15 feet, and accuracy off the tee. Scotty is at the moment the best in the world at 2 out of those 3 things, and also having a pretty good putting season as well.
Yeah, I agree. I can't argue that. I think it's a good week to go back to, our iron specialists. You talk about, some flop lag on Sepp Straka, guys like Aaron Rai. I will be talking about him later. Tom Hoagie. Like, I think that's the
Sand too green for Aaron Rai as well. Data Golf loves Aaron Rai this week in the least shocking news of the week. Aaron Rai is showing as value for Data Golf.
No, they're gonna tell you play Aaron Rai, play Keegan, play Siwoo. Like play Russell Henley. Like that's the direction.
Danny Berger. Did you see? I was talking about this with Kyle this morning. Did you see how quickly now books will adjust based on Data Golf? So like Daniel Berger, I missed this by like a second, literally. Daniel Berger was 80 to 1 on FanDuel at 12:59 Eastern, and Data Golf came out with their numbers. They made Daniel Berger 50 to 1, and by 1:07, Daniel Berger moved from 80 to 1 to 55 to 1 in a matter of minutes, like right in front, as Kyle would say, in my fucking face. And I missed the 80.
Yeah, I probably would have bet that if I saw it. I was not paying attention to Daniel Berger. I made my bets early this morning, but that is a bad number. He should not be more than 50 or 55 here, I don't think.
So ultimately, I semi-led you in a different direction there because I got sidetracked by Data Golf. But where do you land on Scotty this week as a DFS play? What do you think the ownership is going to be? How do you feel about the price?
I think the price is fair / cheap. Obviously, it dropped because we don't have a 5K range this week. But again, you then have to factor in that it's a no-cut event. So, I am very willing to take chances down in the 6K range and play with Scotty. I don't have a ton of interest in a lot of these other guys. Like I said, I bet Colin. It doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to play him this week. So I feel like I'm going to play Scotty as much as I can. I would say rough ownership. I think he will push 40% this week.
I think 100% he'll be back to 40%.
And I think Rory again, even though, he finished okay last week, I just feel like people are off him right now. And, he might be a third, right, of the ownership of Scott.
100%. And by the way, like, Rory was a good play last week. Sorry. Like,
yeah,
he was 19. He finished T19. Scotty didn't really outscore him by that much. And he was a quarter of the ownership of Scotty Scheffler. And $2,000 cheaper than Scotty Scheffler. So I stand by the take that the pendulum had swung potentially too far on Rory McIlroy, and he has just like his public perception after winning the Masters. If you had told me that it was going to go this downhill this quickly for Rory McIlroy, and I'm not excusing him, like this is all because of his behavior. He did it. He has done it to himself, based on his actions and the way that he's talking to the media right now and his on-course behavior. But I cannot believe how little Rory McIlroy has gotten out of winning the Grand Slam and getting the monkey off his back. Like, he is hated in our Discord, hated, like despised.
Yeah. I think it'll be different when they go to Portrush, but look, it's got to be hard to get back up after that. And clearly he was frustrated with the media for a while. I think the driver testing was just the final straw, but look, he still led the field and off the tee at the US Open. I think he gained 3 or 4 shots in the short game. So it's like, all right, if that's his like F game when he's like mentally not there, and he's going to be a third of the ownership of Scotty, like, yeah, I think you should play some Rory this week.
Yeah, I think it's a Scotty week for me. I faded Scotty last week. I felt comfortable with that decision and the reasoning for that decision. This to me feels like more of a week where Scotty is going to strategically plot his way around this golf course. And by Sunday afternoon, we're going to look at that leaderboard and Scotty is just casually winning the tournament by 3 strokes. So I think for me, I'm going to play Scotty in 50% of my lineups. The other 50% of my lineups is a tougher decision. And I think it's like, I haven't ruled out Rory. Obviously, I have some interest in Colin Morikawa, probably more as a DFS play than I do as an outright. But then the guy that we haven't mentioned is Xander, who I thought had a B US Open, right? Like he ended up backdooring a top 20. He was not relevant to win the tournament at one point for 1 second, but he gained in both ball striking categories. In fact, he gained strokes marginally across the board, which is exactly what you're looking for out of Xander. I do think he continues to gear up. Like, I don't think that he is the best version of Xander right now, but I do think that, like, I think Xander could be a serious threat at Portrush, and he is going to win within his next 3 to 5 tournaments.
Yeah, and it was really weird because like the coverage showed a lot of Xander this weekend, and they kept showing his birdies and his good shots, but then in between he would have like 6 bogeys, and I was like, how is this guy back to 8 over? How is he back to 6 over? But yeah, I'm with you. He is trending up. I don't know exactly where it's going to come. Maybe a playoff event, maybe a FedEx Cup type run again, but he is much closer than he's been. So I'm in on Xander.
Okay, rank these guys: Cantlay, Ludwig, JT, Straka, Burns, Hovland. I just gave you 6. I can cut that down to 4 if it's too many cooks in the kitchen for you. But those are the those are the 6 guys once you get past Morikawa. And of those 6, I'm probably going to choose at least 1 to 2 of them, maybe less if I end up going super heavily on Scotty. Like, I don't know. I think the way to play Scotty is having 8K range be your second guy in. But in your non-Scotty lineups, how do you feel about the Cantlay to Hovland range?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously some concerns about Burns and Hovland after the long weekend. I would say just in a vacuum, I would have these ranked Hovland 1, Straka 2, Cantlay 3, JT 4, Burns 5, and Ludwig 6. There's something going on with Ludwig very clearly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I
his
think
coach team, I saw some stuff this weekend that he might have had some migraines or something going on, but he just hasn't been right. The iron play hasn't been good. The off the tee game is fine, but not great. He's just not doing anything well right now. So I don't know.
Yeah. I gotta say, like, he's been super, super disappointing since winning Torrey Pines. Insanely disappointing.
And I had a lot of him last week too. So
yeah. No, I don't blame you. A lot of people did. I don't know what the hell to do with Patrick Cantlay. I'm at a loss when it comes to Patrick Cantlay. Like, truly at a loss with this.
I just have a firm rule that I don't play him. So if he burns me, it'll happen. Obviously loves this golf course. The iron play was horrible at the US Open, but beyond that, he seemed okay. But he's never going to be low owned here. That's the thing. This is
the course history is too strong. Yeah. The course history is too strong. I got to be honest. I'm pretty lukewarm on Cantlay, Ludwig, JT, Straka, Burns. I mean, Brian, I somewhat agree with you. Like, I'm not running to play Hovland and Burns this week just because they almost won the US Open. I actually think it might be a negative. Like, going through the guys that were in contention last week that came out on the golf course back when it was pouring rain and just got like punched in the dick for 2 hours straight on national television trying to win this US Open while having to hit like terrible golf shots in ridiculous conditions. Like, I'm not running to back those guys at the Travelers because they were deep in contention at the US Open. In fact, I don't have it in front of me. This would be a good research project for me this afternoon. But the week after the US Open, I feel like the guys who play well at the Travelers, unless it's Scotty, like I remember, for example, the year that Xander won the Travelers, that was the Brookline year. And Xander that year, I remember this very clearly, was like a super popular pick at Brookline. This was when Xander was like top 10ing every single event, but before he started winning golf tournaments. And I remember at that Brookline US Open, everybody was like, okay, it's Xander's time. Like, he's our guy at Brookline. And then he significantly disappointed at Brookline. And then everybody was off him for Travelers, and he ended up winning the Travelers the next week. I think there are a couple good flop lag spots. Like, I have a lot of interest in Fleetwood this week. Probably not to win the golf tournament, but I think Fleetwood is a great DFS play. What is the deal with Corey Connors? Because he just like, is he really hurt? Like,
you can't play him.
He just withdrew on Sunday, and
I would think so.
Completely tarpooned all of my good
stuff. But I think he was hurt. So he was playing. I think he was playing with Michael Kim, right? And Michael Kim had either tweeted about it or I think he was on a podcast. But he said, like, I was shocked that he kept playing when he hit that wire because it was clear that he was hurt. So Connor's full X for me, especially with how much I like Russell this week. That plus the wrist injury, especially with a no-cut event, like you can't play that risk here.
Good question from Pepe here, because this is in the 8K range. Would you go back to Bobby Mack again here?
I think that goes back to what we were just saying. Like, it's more mental. I love this golf course. I would love this golf. Like, I would almost rather go back to Shane Lowry, who shot 18 over par, because he's had a few days off to cool off. But,
I think it's a good. I think there's a good bounce back spot for both Lowry and potentially even Straka too.
Yeah, and I think where they're positioned, like people are going to play Jordan Spieth. So Lowry's a good pivot off of that. People are going to play Burns. And so I think Sepp is a good pivot off of that. So yeah, much more inclined to stay away from the guys from last week, especially the ones who are very in the heart of contention.
Okay, so what do you make about the rest of this 8K range? Guys like Ben Griffin,
so again, like, I think
Hideki,
Spieth
Jordan
is going to. So I bet Hideki. I have a little bit of regret, but his ball striking over the weekend was just mesmerizing. Like I played a lot of Showdown this weekend, and I was like jamming Hideki.
Hideki played really well on Sunday.
I think it's and he's got a 23rd and a 13th here, so like it's not great, but obviously he can play this golf course really well. I just I like to grab Hideki after those sort of spike weeks because he's really a form player. Like I know he can be inconsistent and like hard to predict, but he's really not. Like he goes through these stretches where he's just white hot. And I'm gonna chase that iron play. So I do like him. I'm not gonna play Spieth. I'm not gonna play Keegan.
I'm not gonna play Keegan either. I'm not gonna play Keegan either. I think like Keegan, might be the highest owned player in the 8K range outside of Henley.
Yeah, I'm with you. So yeah, for me, Fleetwood, Henley, and Matsuyama are probably the only three that I'm going to play here in the 8K range.
I'm with you, although probably a little bit lower on Matsuyama than you are. But to me, in this 8K range, my two favorites are Fleetwood and Henley. I bet Henley last night because I thought that 55-1 on Henley was 20 points off. Like I was shocked.
And it was.
Yeah.
I mean, he got cut. So even this morning, I got up around 6 and FanDuel put him at 60 this morning. And I was like, that's going to get hammered. Yeah. He was 60 this morning. And he's probably down to 40 or 45 already.
He finished 10th. He finished 10th at Oakmont.
And finished 5th at Memorial.
He finished 5th at Memorial, and he's won a signature event, and his course history here is like good. Event.
Yeah, I think he got pummeled. So he'll probably close around 40 or 35. But yeah, I mean, great. Yeah, look, a great course fit for him. I'm surprised his course history isn't stellar because
it's
usually when you get
though.
These Russell Henley, no, but like these Russell Henley courses, he usually just has awesome, consistent course history. So
yeah. A lot of our Discord pulverized Russell Henley this week.
Yeah, I think everyone I've seen has pretty much bet him today. So
yeah, I don't think pulverized is the right word there to describe the number, but upwards and onwards we go into the 7s. Your boy Cam Young sitting there at 7.8. I would worry about that ownership this week. I got to be honest with you. I think I look at the 7K range, and to me, the guys that are going to be the highest owned are Cam Young, Siwoo Kim, Daniel Berger, Aaron Rai.
I'm with you. I think you could sneakily see a spike in Brian Harman down below the course history here. He made the cut at the U.S. Open last week, but he hasn't been great, but he just has really good course history here. I'm very okay with fading like all of this chalk here. The good news with Cameron Young, well, one, I was going to play him anyways. But the good news about Cameron Young is that Data Golf hates him. So maybe that'll help keep the optimizer boys off a little bit. But
I think my guess on that is like they just love accuracy off the tee at TPC River Highlands. And you don't need to be like accuracy off the tee helps, but you don't. There's so many examples of guys that have played great at TPC River Highlands that just don't hit a lot of fairways. Like it's not insanely necessary.
Yeah, I mean, he started slow last year and then went 66, 59, 66. So like, I don't care. He can play this golf course well. I don't care that he can't hit a fairway. He's playing great. Look, I think I put this out in the Discord this morning, but like you cover up the name, guy that was 4th at the US Open and 4th at RBC, and is a great putter, you would play him at 60-1. You would play him in the mid sevens here. So I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else that you feel like we've missed in the 7K range before we finish up in the sixes?
Yeah. So again, like I think a good opportunity if people are playing the accuracy, angle where like you can play Cam Young, you can play Tony Finau, you can play Taylor Pendrith. I feel like these are really good players that are really affordable price that are not going to be high owned at all. And like you said, I think the ownership is going to be consolidated here with Rye, Berger, and probably Siwoo a bit.
I'll tell you, for me, I actually really like, shout out our guy Tom and Marty's. I really like Poston and Harmon this week. Like this is just a golf course where both of those two guys can completely compete here, and they have competed here in the past. Like if you look at Poston and Harmon on these shorter positional club down golf courses, less than driver, that test more accuracy over distance, Harmon and Poston have consistently competed, and both of those guys I trust to get hot with the putter as well. Like Poston can absolutely win a tournament like this and get to 20 under par without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, it's actually crazy that he missed 5 of his first 6 cuts here, because it should be a perfect course for him. He seems to have been chipping in a lot recently. At least it's been on my TV quite a bit. So like that's a little concerning because his iron play really hasn't been great recently. But yeah, perfect golf course for him. Brian Harmon has elite course history. I think one other one down here that's going to gain some steam is probably Jason Day.
I was even going to say Denny too.
I think Day, I don't know if Day's won here, but he's been close. He may have won here like 20 years ago.
Day has contended at this golf course before, 100%.
Yeah, it just seems like he's playing better than his results are showing. Like he's driving it pretty well. The irons are pretty good. He putts pretty well and just hasn't put it all together. He is someone I really like for Portrush as well. And so would love to see him play well this week. I just think this is too cheap. Like he's still a top 30 player in the world, I think. And this is a very cheap price for him.
What do you think about Novak? It seems like Novak's been getting some steam as well. I get it in theory, but I'm probably lower on him than whatever the market is. He's not really popping for me.
Same. I will say, I think this range from 69, like down to that Novak range, 1 or 2 of these guys will be in the top 10 this week. You just have to find it. For me, it's probably Hoagie and Max Gracerman are probably the 2 that I'm focused on. Yeah. But it could be Novak. It could be Ryan Gerard. It could be Matt Fitzpatrick. Like, again, I feel like the signs have been there. Thomas Dietrich was tied for 13th last week. Nick Taylor played well last week. Like, I think you have to get 1 or 2 of these guys correct. And they fit really nicely in those Scotty builds. So,
yeah. Who do you think is the highest owned in this range? Because I think it could be Novak and Gerard. I mean, Gerard was like one of the highest owned in the 6K range last week, and he played very well. So I think a lot of people will go back to Gerard. Stevens also had a really good US Open. But I don't know, Pepe, because he was very chalky last week at the US Open and let a lot of people down, myself included.
I think I mean, everybody plays Novak. I think it's going to be Nick Taylor, if I had to guess. And he does not have good he actually has horrific course history here, but he's playing really well. Obviously won big events, like just not the type of name that you'd expect down in the 6K range. Obviously won earlier this year at Sony, which I guess there's some comp there with the short iron play. But yeah, I would say Taylor and Novak would probably be the 2 highest owned. But yeah, for me, Hoagie and Gracerman, probably the 2 guys that I'm focused on here.
I will tell you, and we can go out on this. My favorite play in the 6K range is Lucas Glover at 6.2. He missed the cut at the US Open. But that was always going to be a really tough spot for him. Like that US Open was never, it's not a golf course where like you want to be very good at approach play and not good at everything else. Whereas TPC River Highlands is a golf course where you could be insane with your middle to short irons and good at pretty much nothing else. And that is what Lucas Glover does. I mean, I would actually add that he's very accurate off the tee as well. But I think, I mean, like he has wins at golf courses like Sedgefield, like these shorter golf courses where it's more accuracy over distance, it's short irons over long irons. Lucas Glover won the John Deere, right? If I'm getting that correctly, he won the John Deere, right? I think the John Deere is like a awesome like comp for this week. John Deere has very similar. John Deere is very similar agronomy. It actually has a somewhat significant missed fairway penalty, which is the same thing at Travelers. You're going to get some thicker, lush rough, enough rough to make players think off the tee. And like very similar scoring and very similar proximity buckets. So I agree, Pepe. I don't traditionally think of Lucas Glover on easier golf courses where you have to get hot with the putter, but he's won there. Like he's won at those golf courses primarily because the other avenue, you know, in terms of how you get to 20 under is by gaining 8 or 9 strokes on approach. And a lot of those putts are just 4-footers, and Lucas Glover has the ability to do that.
Yeah, in that same ilk, I'll give you one more. So there is another player down here that has a second, third at Sedgefield, a second at the Sony, just finished 6th in Canada, has a top 10 in a signature event this year. How about Benny On? Can I sell you some Benny On at 6,300?
You can. He's an
I feel like that's just a low price for him, you know.
Yeah, fair enough. It is a low price for him. If we're talking like dumpster diving, Ben throw out Cam Davis. I kind of like Eckroat.
Sure, yeah. I think if accuracy is what you want, sure.
Yes.
Yeah. How is Adam Hadwin still in these fields, by the way? He played well in Canada, but like
bigger question: how's Nick Dunlap still in these fields?
Because he won twice. Like wins will get you in stuff.
Wins will buy you a lot.
That won't last long. Or just a couple months from seeing these Brian Campbell, Nick Dunlap, Joe Highsmiths out of here.
Yeah. So for me, Glover, I think is the nuts down here.
Sure. Yeah. I think yes for bottom of the lineup, but yeah, like my initial build when I was just clicking through pricing, you know, and I was making a Scotty team, obviously. I grabbed 2 6K, 2 7K, Scotty, and Russell Henley. I feel like I'm going to land there quite a bit this week.
All right, RB, sir, who is your winner this week?
I mean, let's go down with the ship, right? Cameron Young. If he doesn't win this, he's winning Rocket Mortgage. If he doesn't win there, he's winning the John Deere. We are riding it. I already have the future at Portrush at 100. So like, he's got to win something. Come on.
I'm going to say Daniel Berger finally gets off the hump this week.
That would throw a little wrench in the Ryder Cup standings too, because I feel like we're now down to like 9 or 10 spots are pretty much locked up now. Like including Spawn and Ben Griffin. So that would be a very interesting one for sure.
Okay, RB, a pleasure as always. I may have to find you a co-host next week because I'm going
you're out next week?
I'm going on my annual golf trip to South Carolina. I think it is, you know, really the only Monday show that I will have to miss all year, but I'm going to be playing Yeaman's Hall that day. So super pumped about that.
It sounds more fun. Yeah, let's get Kyle on the show. I haven't done a show with Kyle, so
yeah. So I will get you either Kyle or Rishi or Twitterless Steve, somebody good that you'll have a good back and forth with. And until then, best of luck with your bets this week, as always. And we will see you guys next time. Cheers.
See ya.